Throughout the years, I've spent a lot of time reading books about music and how to get great musical ideas and learn. So I thought it would be a really, really cool idea if I would talk about some of the books that I've read throughout the years and what I've learned from them. Today, I think I'll start with a book called Casals and the Art of Interpretaion by David Blum. Pablo Casals, of course, was a great cellist, but more than that, he was a great teacher and a great musician. He conducted, and he came up with a lot of ideas that are really useful to all of us. So I'd like to go through a few of those ideas and see if maybe they can help you. I thought to myself, what's the best way to talk about these, and what's the best way to demonstrate what Casals has to say or what any artist has to say? Well, the best way that I'd look at these things is by playing and thinking about really, really simple phrases and simple pieces and putting things to work that way. And that way, when I play more difficult things, I can still use those same concepts that I learned, but I can solidify those concepts when I'm playing something a little bit more simple. So I'm going to use the first Suzuki book or two as my demonstration pieces and talk about some concepts that would really help people develop themselves into great musicians. The first thing that I learned from Casals and the Art of Interpretaion is that music always has a line and a direction. Well, what do I mean by that? Well, each phrase is like a sentence. In other words, it's made of a bunch of notes, but we can kind of think of it as being a bunch of words that make sense, a complete thought. So when the simplest way to look at things in Pablo Casals' mind is that, as a general rule, when the notes ascend or go up, A, B, C, D, E, like this, like so, that you should make a crescendo. And when they go down or descend, that you should make a diminuendo. Of course, Mr. Casals is very careful to tell us that this is not a rule to be followed all the time, but just most of the time, and it's a good general rule to follow. So let's take a look at a piece. How about Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star? That's the simplest piece that most string players know. And see how when the notes go up, we crescendo, and when they go down, that we diminuendo. So I'm just going to play a phrase of that and put that into our mix. Well, that reminds me of another concept from this book, and that is a diminuendo, or the diminuendo, is the life of the music. What does he mean by that? I was always wondering, since I heard that when I was really young, what does Casals mean by that? Diminuendo is the life of music. Well, after many years, I kind of came up with the idea that when we make a crescendo, it's not that difficult. It's easier to get louder. But it's much more difficult to get softer. It takes a lot more artistry to make a diminuendo in my mind than it does to make a crescendo. As we make a diminuendo, we need to become much more refined, and we need to make sure that we don't get sleepy and stop vibrating or stop being musical. So the diminuendo becomes the real true vision of an artist. My favorite thing that I learned in Casals and the Art of Interpretaion by far is the following quote. Music, in general, is a succession of rainbows. That is so profound. What is a rainbow? A rainbow is an arc. A rainbow goes from low to high and back to low. And there are different shapes of rainbows in my mind, just from my imagination, and lots of colors. And so when we have the rainbow, we can start soft, get louder, and come down. Well, when we speak sentences, we do the same thing. We start soft, and then we go through the sentence and get softer again. And that makes the shape as a rainbow. Well, if we play two phrases, that has one rainbow here and one rainbow here. So there are two next to each other, but we also have one large rainbow over the two of them. So the succession of rainbows is so interesting because not only do we have one that looks like this, and then one that looks like this after it, but then we have the rainbow on top of those. So everything comes with an arc. Let me just play a piece and think to myself, how can I play things so that it sounds that music is a succession of rainbows? And you can see how making that diminuendo, especially at the end, is very difficult, but it is the heart of the music. So great musicians must spend a lot of time practicing making diminuendos and making sure that everything in their playing that they would be doing forte is still there when you're playing piano. I'm talking vibrato, tone color, tone quality, etc., etc. So it takes a lot of control to make diminuendos and is well worth practicing. The May song in Suzuki Book 1 is also good to think about rainbows. It's a very simple song, but it gives us the opportunity to phrase really beautifully. And that reminds me of another concept that I learned from Casals in the Art of Interpretation, and that is, if you play the same thing twice, make it different so that it's more interesting, and people love to listen to that. So if you say the same thing twice, say it differently. Say it differently. You see how I'm talking like that? Well, the playing is the same way. So you'll notice in that May song that I just played, that when I played this the first time, that I play it differently the second time. And when I play it this way the first time, then the second time, I can say it like that. And my playing takes on a great deal of variety. I love the Suzuki books, especially the early ones, because most of the pieces are quite repetitive, and it gives me the opportunity of coming up with different musical ideas. Listen to Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. There you'll see there's a variety. When the notes went down, I diminuendoed. But when I played something that was the same two times, I played it completely differently. And I love doing that. Another great thing that I learned in Casals in the Art of Interpretation is that Casals tells us that character is more important than having a beautiful sound in music. If you don't have character, your great sound does not carry. So don't think that it's not important to have a great sound. Of course you want to have a great sound, but having character when you're playing is so important. So I'm going to play a piece called Witch's Dance from Suzuki Book Number 2 and try to inject a little bit of character in there. My sound was good enough, but I had a lot of character. And the character is what people want to hear when you're playing music. Finally, one more thing that I learned from this book that's so important is that each time that you play a long note, that long note needs to have some sort of direction. And it sometimes is difficult to figure out which direction that is. But generally, when you play a long note, you either want to make some sort of a crescendo or some sort of a diminuendo, or maybe a crescendo and a diminuendo. But you need to do something with that note to add direction and also to get to the next thing that you're playing. So I'm going to play a piece here, and we'll see when I play the longer notes if I can engage and make that longer note move to something else. Something like that. And in there you can hear the rainbows, you can hear the lines in the music, and you can hear that in the long notes. I'm really trying to add direction. I'm always trying to go somewhere. I'm always trying to say something. Music is like speaking. I always tell people that, why do we play the viola or the violin? Well, the reason we do is because we're not really good singers, and we want to sing and we want to say things to people. And so we need to learn how to speak and sing through our instrument. And those are the concepts that I took from the Casals book called Casals and the Art of Interpretaion. It's by David Blum. I'll leave a link down in the comments if you would like to take a look at purchasing it or see what it looks like. But those are the concepts, and I hope that you learn something from it. And stay tuned, because I think I will talk about some of the other books that have had a profound impact in my musical life. Until I see you next time, happy practicing.